I think there is a lesson to be learned in this film. If your pet starts talking to you, telling you to kill people, then you might as well start taking your crazy pills. The Voices is a dark comedy starring Ryan Reynolds, who plays as a crazy person. Now, he doesn't seem too crazy at the beginning of this film. He seems a little bit like an oddball outcast in this small community that is a little misunderstood and a little socially awkward. But then you find out he has full-length conversations with his cat and dog who speak to him. To make a long story short, he accidentally kills one of his co-workers, and now his cat is telling him, you better cover it up and make sure no one else knows, and then you gotta kill again. Now let me tell you, this dark comedy is really dark, and there is a lot of crazy stuff in this film. Now, it plays off of classic psycho tropes with our main character having multiple personalities and hearing voices, being socially awkward and wanting to find true love and falling in love with co-workers and end up killing people. There's a lot of different old Hollywood movie tropes similar to like Psycho and other films of that type in this film, but it's done in a pretty quirky and unique sort of way that you don't really notice it that much. Now, the film is really well done in the fact that it really gets you into the head of our main character. So much so that it feels like you're in a different world. A colorful, clean, and butterfly-filled world. It almost makes me think this is what SpongeBob would be like if he were a crazy psychopath that wanted to kill people. But at the same time, I think that's a little off-putting to some because it makes you feel like this is some goofy, happy, family-friendly type of film that it shouldn't be because it's a dark comedy. But all in all, it just puts you into the head of Ryan Reynolds' character, who is in denial and thinks that everything could be fine if done right, and thinks that things are beautiful and that the voices in his head are something to be cherished. And all this sort of stuff, it really, like I said, it puts you into his mindset. Now, even though it does put you into his perspective, there are a few moments where it does change and you don't see the world through his eyes, but rather the realistic version. Now, there are a few moments where it deviates from seeing it through his eyes, where you see what his apartment building really looks like and what the inside of his apartment really looks like, because it's really neat. When you see it through his eyes, everything looks so clean and spotless and almost 50s type era. But when you see it through another person's eyes, or his eyes when he actually takes the pills to balance him out, you see what it really looks like, and it is pretty disgusting and disturbing. So there are a few moments where you do see it through other people's eyes, just to give you a sense of what it really is like, and just how much of in denial and how much of it he is in his own little world. Now, despite Ryan Reynolds' character being a possible serial killer and killing people, I did find his character very easy to sympathize with, because he's so much of an outcast. He's so socially awkward. He still wants to be loved and fall in love, and he still kills people on accident. But that could be just because he's losing his instincts, and this other personality within him is taking over for a split second. But of course, I wasn't rooting for him to kill people. No, that would be absolutely horrible of me to say. No, I was still sympathizing for him and still felt it was one of those characters that you like, and you know that they're doing something completely wrong, and you want to just take them and say, no, you're doing the wrong thing, do the other thing, turn yourself in, don't kill people, don't cover it up, all those sorts of things. It's one of those characters where you feel bad for him, even though he's doing such horrible things. While the really goofiness and quirkiness to this dark comedy might be a little off-putting and a little strange to some, there still feels like there's something deep within it that makes it a little bit more of a legitimately good film. For instance, the flashback that Ryan Reynolds has of his past and what his mother was like, and this romance that him and his this co-worker of his, played by Andrew Kendrick, this spark that happens with their romance, it does feel legitimate and feels believable. In the end, I thought The Voices was absolutely amazing, except when the ending happens. Now I'm going to give my rating right now, and then I'm going to talk about the ending because the ending will spoil, because I don't want to spoil the ending for people who have not seen The Voices yet. So, just because the last scene was just so weird, off-putting, and just so crazy, I'm going to end up having to give something I would normally give 4.5 stars. I'm going to give it 4 stars. Yeah, something happens in the end that's a little too much for me personally, and I can see a lot of people getting completely offended by the ending. It's understandable. So if you have not seen The Voices yet, I'm going to do you a little favor. Without giving too much away, basically you need to stop the film when the camera zooms in to Ryan Reynolds' eye. I think it only happens once in the entire movie, and then that's at the very end. Once that happens, shut the film off. Don't watch the credits. Don't watch the final scene before the credits or as the beginning credits start rolling. Do not watch that. If you're really liking The Voices, just go ahead and stop it when the camera zooms into his eye. So now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about the ending for those that have seen The Voices. So in the end, Ryan Reynolds is stuck in the bowling alley while his apartment's on fire and smoke is filling up the entire area, and realizing all the wrong he's finally done, finally realizing all the wrong he's done, he decides, instead of trying to escape like his cat tells him to, he just lays down and dies so that he won't cause any more problems for anyone else, and so on and so forth. So then the camera zooms into his eye, and here's what I believe the whole musical ending was. Now, some people, I can understand why a little bit, that they think he really did go up to heaven. Yeah, there are people that believe this. They believed that he actually did go up to heaven with his parents and the people he murdered and with Jesus and sang along to a happy song. Some people thought that that was the message of the movie, that it's like, oh, it's okay to kill people because you'll still go to heaven anyway with all those people. That's not what the film's about, people. And I can kind of understand it, but especially if you hated the film beforehand and then this is just the icing on the cake. Now here's the more logical reason for that ending, which I believe is what it was meant to be like, and it's meant to be taken as not actually what's really happening, but as of what he thinks is going to happen to him just before he dies. Because, let's face it, people, think about it. Throughout the whole movie, we've been in Ryan Reynolds' character's head almost the entire time, except for the few instances when we see it through the eyes of other people of how his apartment really looks like. So he's been in sort of this denial throughout the whole time. And this musical that happens at the end is just in his head. After all, the camera zooms into his eye, indicating this is all in his head. He didn't really go up to heaven. He really didn't sing with Jesus and all his former co-workers. But I can still understand why that whole scene could be completely offensive. And still, I felt that that scene was completely unnecessary. And it sort of, in a way, belittles his decision to killing himself. And I feel that the film seriously should have just ended with the camera zooming into his eye and then the credits rolling. I think that's how the film should have ended, and that's how I would advise everyone else to watch the film, to stop it right when he dies with the camera zooming in his eye. So as always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was just my opinion.